Welcome back to the Elise Surkov podcast. I am so fucking excited because today I have my very first guest joining me on the podcast, and she is a really special woman. Not only is she one of the badass coaches at FFWE, but she happens to be a very, very good friend of mine, Ms. Kristine Peacock. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm so excited. I'm so pumped.
I'm pumped too. I am so excited. We're going to get into all things cycle syncing, and we might get a little witchy, but before we even get there, go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, for sure. I am one of the badass coaches at FFWE, and we've been working together for over 2 years now. And so I coach women through their weight loss journey, their body recomps, focusing on nutrition, their cyclical health, their lifestyle as well. And then I'm a personal trainer. I have a background in culinary nutrition. And before all of this, I was an elementary school teacher for 20 years. And I think that's important to say because as we start off this conversation about cycle syncing, I want to tell the listeners that I did not know about the 4 phases of our menstrual cycle until I was 40. And right? And I was a teacher, like I said, for 20 years. I taught sex ed every June, and I never taught the kids about the 4 phases of our feminine cycle. I'm also a girl mom of 3. So my daughters currently, they keep having birthdays, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. They're currently 19, 17, and almost 13. So I've got 3 teenagers. There's so many vaginas in our house, and I feel like this conversation is so relevant. As women, we intuitively know this, but I think as mothers, grandmothers, girlfriends, women in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, in perimenopause, menopause, and beyond, and even if you no longer have a period, I still want you to listen up to this conversation. It's going to be really relevant.
Yeah, 100%. And I will also add that I fucking love that I was like, is she going to say it that you were a teacher for 20 years? Because one of the big things we talk about, you know this in the program, is the shift in identity and really reinventing ourselves in this stage of life. And I love to say you as an example where you have completely changed your life. And we'll get into that. I'll have you back where we'll get into identity for sure. But let's get into cycle syncing a little bit. And like you, I have no idea. I had no idea what the phases of the menstrual cycle were until I started getting into like the functional side of things, right? We were just taught when you get a period, you put a tampon in and then you go about your business. But now, okay, so let's talk about cycle syncing. What is it? And how do we use it in perimenopause and menopause? I'm going to let you take that over.
Absolutely. So I want to say first and foremost, our menstrual cycle, our fertility is our superpower. It is what makes women badass. And I just think, as having these teenage daughters, I think of what I knew about my cycle and fertility at their age. I mean, I just thought when I was 17 that you had your period and every other day of the month you could get pregnant. I had no idea.
17-year-old, just so you know, you're going to get pregnant every second of the day.
Right. You just look at it. You use somebody's soap and you're going to get pregnant. And so I just want to start off by saying that and give women permission that if you never knew this, it's not too late. Like, even if you're postmenopausal and you're like, I didn't even know there was 4 phases of our feminine cycle. What are you even talking about? You are not alone. And so I think it really is empowering. And like I said from the beginning, we intuitively know this. So the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle are the one that we all know is the bleed week, our period. So that is menses. We all know what that looks like. We all know what happens. Typically, that is anywhere between 3 to 7 days long, kind of typically, or in a normal body. There's a whole host of symptoms that comes with the menstrual bleed. But day 1 of your cycle is the first day of your bleed. Not spotting. It is when you actually have to use a feminine care product. Because you have like a dark red.
We're talking blood, ladies. Like, we're not talking the light stuff. Yeah. Okay,
exactly. Cool. So that is day 1 of your bleed. And this is when our hormones, and I know you've done podcasts already on what is happening hormonally, but this is when our hormones are at their lowest. So the lining of the uterus is shedding because we are not pregnant. Yay, yay. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably don't want to be pregnant. So then after your bleed, and I'll talk about the symptoms as well energetically, but let me go through the 4 phases. After your bleed is where hormones begin to rise again, and this is called the follicular phase. And so this is where our estrogen is rising, testosterone is rising, and this is where, as women, we typically feel really fucking amazing during this week. And we work with so many women who have cyclical issues, and they're like, I only feel good 1 week a month. This is probably the week that you're talking about. And we'll get into training and energy in just a little bit. But phase 2 is the follicular phase. Then we get into ovulation. And ladies, ovulation is
It's
the
go time.
it's go time, and this is what we want to focus on. So we always thought of like the period as being the main event. No, ovulation is the main event. And so when the follicles have ripened and you've got an egg to release, you will ovulate. Now during perimenopause, sometimes we have anovulatory cycles where we're not actually releasing the egg, but when it's go time, we release that egg during ovulation, and that is when, after ovulation, is when progesterone comes on the scene. So typically around ovulation, we're also feeling really great. We're noticing libido, we're noticing energy, we're just feeling more outgoing, more like ourselves.
And like, let's just pause here for a second, Kristine, because I want to make it clear, like, what, like, physiologically, biologically, we are designed to make babies. And even if you don't want babies, even if you've had babies, even if you are just like can't physically keep whatever it is, like we are here to procreate. So when you're going to be ovulating, you're going to be feeling your sexiest, your horniest, your most livelihood so you can go and make a baby.
Typically, yes. I mean, I have had, though, I will say the caveat to that is optimally, that's how you feel. But when hormones are dysregulated, when you're stressed out, when there's a lot going on, and because, like I said, ovulation is the main event, if something is a little bit dysregulated, I know for myself, my body weight fluctuates during ovulation. I get crampy, I get uncomfortable, I get bloated. So there are, ideally, we feel really good, but sometimes I just want to let other women know that sometimes this isn't the best part of your cycle.
Yeah. And I will say for me personally, and I know there's probably lots of women, Kristine, you and I have talked about this, even since I was a kid, I had horrible ovulation pains. I remember my mother telling me when I was little, "Oh, this is great. It will be easier for you to get pregnant because you'll know exactly when you're ovulating." When I went off the pill, like before I had my daughter, I thought I was having a kidney stone. My doctor like sent me for scans because I forgot the pain of ovulation. So I will say I do fall into that. I am completely dysregulated with that.
Absolutely. And sometimes women can feel one side to the other side, which side is ovulating. So it's really interesting. So again, and there's all different kinds of things we can look for in terms of cervical fluid. Again, things change as we're into perimenopause and we're not creating that same amount of abundant cervical fluid, but there are other signs and symptoms, tweaks, twinges, cervical changes, cervical fluid changes during ovulation as well. And then after your body has ovulated, hopefully it has happened, then you enter in the luteal or luteal phase, and this is progesterone comes on the rise, and the other hormones start to downregulate a little bit. But we only produce progesterone if we've ovulated. So again, in perimenopause, things aren't firing as robustly as they used to, and this. I mean, when I was 17, like I said, I thought you had your period, PMS, and
Pregnant.
every other day you're pregnant, right? So PMS is kind of typically associated with that luteal phase of the cycle.
And
And
just to like pause here again, because I know this can get confusing, but we're talking about really that horrible PMS being the fluctuation or lack of rise or higher relative to estrogen and being progesterone. So let's just like focus on progesterone because I always say that this is the hormone that I want to like make love to. Right? Like I'm on HRT, I'm on progesterone and I love her and I wish I knew this years ago because I take Vitex and you know that I've been on Vitex for years now to help with that fluctuation with progesterone. I am one of those women who for the entirety of my cycling life have only felt good for 2 weeks of the year of the month. So there is such a dysregulation and this is where it gets really it can fall off quickly, right?
yeah,
For women, is this is the luteal phase, the drop of progesterone. Okay, sorry.
right. Because as progesterone drops off and estrogen is there, the estrogen relative to the progesterone can be higher,
Yeah.
which there's different types of estrogen dominance, but it could be just you do have too much estrogen, or it could be relative to the progesterone, the estrogen is higher.
Yeah.
So
And actually, how many of our clients do you think come in with estrogen dominance in some capacity?
I'd probably say for women who are cycling, I'd say probably half.
Yeah, I would say half as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And again, it's going to happen because our progesterone is declining.
Yeah.
And so the luteal phase is typically the longest phase in the cycle. It's going to shorten as we're in perimenopause. Hello, girl who's having 21-day cycles. My luteal phase is a little shorter right now because my whole cycle is shorter. But when you've got a 28-day cycle, typically you might be having 2 weeks in the luteal phase. So there's two halves of the luteal phase. So right after ovulation, you're still riding high on those hormones and feeling good. And then that week before your period, you start to get some of those symptoms coming
Fucking
on.
hell. You can just say it. It's fucking hell. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the 4 phases of the feminine cycle. And what I want to talk about now is how to bridge and understand the relevance between our feminine cycle, Mother Nature, and the moon. And this is where we're going to get a little bit witchy.
I love when we get witchy, girl. Like, if you don't, you guys, you need to know this. If you don't already know this about me, I'm a witch. Kristine's a witch. We get witchy together.
Burn at the stake.
We sage, we crystal, we do full moon baths. Like, we do it all.
Yeah. So, and this is what I love. And listen, even if you're not witchy, the moon, it shifts bodies of water, oceans. And I remember you one time saying to me, we are mostly water as human beings. So if the moon can affect the rising tides across the world, certainly it's going to affect our bodies as well.
Whether you believe it to be or not, 100%.
Absolutely. And being a teacher, an educator, I knew around the full moon, anybody who's an educator or a first responder knows full moon, it gets fucking crazy out there. If you have little kids.
Full moon energy, I was in Miami doing a yoga once, and they had said that they always close on the full moon. They never did yoga on the full moon. They were like, absolutely not. We're closed on.
It gets crazy. But let's talk about Mother Nature as well as the full moon. So if you live in North America or a place where there are 4 seasons, you are familiar with winter, spring, summer, and fall. And I like to align the 4 seasons with our feminine cycle, as well as we'll talk about the moon as well. So we are literally in the season of winter right now. The season of winter, look around at nature, look around at what is happening. It is cold. Animals are hibernating. We're all staying in. We just want to be warm and cozy. We want to eat soups and stews and warming, grounding foods. We just want to stay huddled in and cozy. The winter is like our menstrual phase. So think of your period as that deload week, as that hibernation week. So permission granted, and I think as women we know intuitively, this is not permission to be like, I'm skipping gym class today. No, we're not going to do that. But it is an opportunity to go within and kind of reflect on where am I now and how do I need to ground myself? How do I need to stay cozy? If you're a modern woman who's go, 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 we are not designed to be go, go, go. We are not 24/7, 365. That's men. Father time, we are Mother Nature. So leaning into this Mother Nature effect, the winter time is in alignment with our menstrual phase. And if you are in perimenopause and you're going through hell, you might be in a literal season of winter right now. I've worked with many clients who are going through some really crazy hormonal things. They feel like shit. They're in a season, literally in their body, of winter. It is time to hibernate. Sometimes they get an actual period for 90 or 100 days, which totally sucks. But sometimes we go through these actual seasons of winter time. So treat your body like a goddess.
Because the time of this recording, we are recording in early January, and it is cold as fuck out there. And I had just said to Albert last night, I don't want to do anything. I am feeling so like wanting to bunker down. And yesterday in our community call, I actually referenced, Kristine, your message that you gave to the team on our team call the prior day, where you said, yeah, it's the beginning of January. This is actually not the greatest time to set a new intention. And so we're going to talk about that too, I hope.
We will, because we're going to talk about the moon. Yeah, absolutely. So Menstrual cycle, think of it as wintertime. So give yourself a week, ladies, where you are hunkering down a little bit. After the wintertime, the the snow starts to melt, the trees start to bud, it starts to get warmer, people are outside, we're shedding off our jackets, the animals are getting frisky outside. This is the follicular phase. This is the time to begin blooming. And so this is just like that follicular phase where things are starting to green up and it's go time. Like the spring is go time. The soil is fertile. We're starting to plant things. We're starting to think about the summertime and harvest as well. So think of spring. The spring really energetically in a woman's body is the new year. It's not January. So for really as women, our new year is the springtime, right? This is where, yeah, the animals are getting frisky. They are, yeah, everything's coming out of hibernation.
Also,
Everything's
like
coming.
creativity central, right? So like we have more creativity, more excitement in the air for that kind of stuff, right? Great time to start a
Absolutely.
new project, a new job, or a new project at job, whatever, relationships. Yeah.
Yeah, get outside. Like get into that spirit of that energetic feeling. Then we've got summer, and I don't know about you. Summer is my favorite season. We are in
Love
Canada,
it.
and summer's like this. It's so fast. It's 2 months. We have 2 months of like tank top and bikini weather, which is aligned with ovulation. Like ovulation really is like a 2 to 4 day period of time. And so too the summer is just so quick. And think of summer. We are kind of a little bit off routine. We are more social. We're getting sexy. The sun's out, guns out. We're wearing sexier clothes. So this is just like ovulation, where we are putting ourselves out there. So just like summertime as well. Full bloom. Everything is in
I'm
full bloom.
having such an aha moment, Kristine, because here I am, and I'm a January baby, you know that. And so is Leia, my daughter. So like we have a lot of like buzz in January, but I'm feeling so, for lack of a better word, like just low. And it's so hard not to compare. Oh, well, in the summer, I was just so happy and I just want that happiness again. And I'm trying to mimic it. And I even said, Albert, we need to get out like we did in the summer, but maybe it's just summer energy being like that ovulatory period, like summer energy ovulatory period versus winter. And I'm really excited to hear more because this is just, I needed to hear this. And I know this,
Yeah,
but I needed to hear it.
embrace it. Like embrace the season that we're in. Energetically, the way that you're showing up, the way that you're eating, the way that you're nourishing your body, the way that you're sleeping. All of that is going to be different. Like literally, it is dark in the wintertime. We wake up later, we go to bed earlier. Summertime, it's lighter and brighter, and we're harnessing that, right? We might stay up a little later, we might wake up a little earlier because that sun is out. So again, but it is quick. That summertime is quick, and then we head into the luteal phase or the fall. So the fall, the leaves are starting to turn brown. Leaves are starting to fall down off the trees. It's getting a little cozier. Pumpkins are out. We're going for the pumpkin lattes. The animals, like squirrels, are starting to collect all their nuts because they're starting to prepare for the winter. So too is our body. Our body is literally and figuratively preparing to shed an organ. That endometrial lining is building, and our bodies are preparing for that if we're not pregnant, right? And so we need to, this is a great time as well. The fall is a great time, just like the luteal phase is a great time for organizing, for just kind of getting all your ducks in a row because you know what's going to happen. My famous word is like, let's be unsurprised. Let's be unsurprised
I
that,
love when you say that. I use that
yeah,
all the time and I give you full credit for it.
yeah, let's be unsurprised that we're going to have a period next week. Let's be unsurprised that we're going into the winter season where it's like the Christmas season is busy and then the January season is cold and let's be unsurprised with all of that. So that's where the luteal and fall phase is where we want to get organized. Remember when you were pregnant, if you've ever been pregnant, people talk about like that last trimester, right? That fourth phase of the season and of our cycle, we start to get nesting. You're 8, 9 months pregnant and you're like, suddenly you have all this energy. You're starting to roost the house. You're getting the baby's room ready. Pardon me.
I
So
cleaned my
too.
apartment head to toe, up and down, every single crevice, right as I was about to go into labor. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes I get like that too. In the luteal phase of my cycle, it's like I need to do a little bit of a deep clean. I need to scrub my schedule. I need to start thinking about my calendar, right? There's so many ways that we can do this.
Okay, cool. So now we have an understanding of like the different phases and kind of put it representing into the seasons as well. So what
Mhm.
does that mean for us in terms of, okay, so like you said, and I agree with you, women, Mother Nature, we're not meant to go, go, go. I think we live a lifestyle that we're not designed to live. And I don't think it, I know it. We're not meant to be in survival mode. We're meant to be in thrive and get pushed into survival mode when needed and come out of it. Unfortunately, that's not how we do it. So what do you say to the woman who is go, go, go? And is struggling. And you know what? We don't see them struggling until they hit their 40s or they hit perimenopause and then they're just like, this shit doesn't fly anymore. We don't have the same capacity and bandwidth that we used to. So how does someone like me or you or someone who is a go, 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 how do we prepare or change our bodies cyclically? Cyclically?
Yeah, so this is such a great question. And it wasn't until I learned about this that it was a permission slip for me to back off a little bit. I mean, in fitness, we talk about when we're designing programs for people, we will put them in a deload week because they've been working really hard at the gym. And in order to really get those gains, we also need to rest and recover. So this is that permission slip for that woman who was a go, 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 because that was me for years. I would never stop. Now, my menstrual cycle or the moon, because I'm in perimenopause, sometimes it doesn't always line up. Energetically, I just know that sometimes I need a bit of a scale back week. And this is actually the perfect week, really, in real time in my body. I was just telling you this, that we get into January, we like hit the ground running, and I just finished my period, and I had a little tickle in my throat this week as well. So I was like, my body was really sore. It was really hurting. And I was like, wait a minute, Kristine, this is a deload week. Permission granted to do a little bit more yoga, to do more walking, to get outside, to do some stretching, to do some Pilates. Yes, I'm still going to lift, but I'm not going to lift my hardest this week on my period. I'm still going to lift heavy, but I'm going to scale it back a little bit, maybe do higher volume of repetitions, because I don't need to tax my body this week because I have all those other things going on. So it really is a permission slip at least once a week, or sorry, once a month, to just scale back. It's not saying to do nothing, because for the woman who is go, 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 it's like, I can't do nothing. But it's that permission slip to scale back a little bit.
I love that you use the word permission slip. I've never heard you use that before, but for me, and you guys know, and Kristine, I know you know, I love to lift. Like that is my jam. I listen to my body every day. If I feel like last week, I couldn't lift heavy. So I was actually in my luteal phase for sure. Now I'm like days away from what I hope to be a period. Before Kristine came out, I said, I need a fucking period, like no one's business right now. I'm so hormonal. But I think that the other thing that I've learned in business is I don't have creativity and I feel like I'm stupid this time right now. So for me, one thing that I tried to do is put all of my bigger projects and things that require full capacity and concentration away from this 3 to 5 day period and try as much as I can to put as much admin stuff on this time. So like doesn't require a lot of heavy focus or creativity. It's just kind of like checking off boxes. Like this is a great week to check off boxes, would you say, right? Like just do the bare minimum that you need to do.
Absolutely. Yes. And listen, whether you're in business for yourself, you work in corporate, you're a teacher, this would have been, had I still been teaching, this would have been the week where I'm like, okay, students, let's watch some movies, not movies, but let's watch some videos here, kids. So that way the video is teaching them the concepts, not me.
Yeah, let's take it
Um,
down a notch.
yeah, let's take things down a notch and be creative with that. And I mean, we can look at that at relationships, at work, at your energy, at your nutrition, at your lifts. All of this, when you're really dialed into your menstrual cycle, that's where this is your superpower. Like you might want to batch record podcasts like this during your ovulatory week, right? So you could always look at your schedule, look at the month ahead of you and design your work week that way. Same with women in corporate. Like I know you don't always have control over everything at work, but where you do have control, put the meetings that you need to have during the follicular ovulatory week. If you're pitching yourself to prospects, clients, your boss, do that during the follicular ovulatory week. If you've got admin tasks to do that during the luteal phase or during your period.
I love that. So you
Yeah.
mentioned this quickly, but I want to get into what about nutrition? What would you recommend for us nutritionally?
Absolutely. So during the menstrual phase, if you still have a period, your body, your uterus is contracting to get rid of that endometrial lining. So the body is literally contracting, and so for women who are experiencing cramps, discomfort, bloating, I recommend you can fast a little bit longer. And I'm not talking about like 24 hours, 18-hour fast.
Yeah.
But during your period, you might just have a little bit more ability to shorten the eating window and maybe just eat an hour breakfast an hour later. You might be able to stretch it out a little bit more. The other thing I would say is because of the uterine lining contracting is maybe going for foods that are mechanically already broken down. So things like smoothies, soups, bone broths, like things that are already like mechanically broken down as opposed to things that you really have to chew. That being said, though, because you are losing blood, you do want to focus on iron and blood building rich foods. So that would be like the red meats, that would be the dark leafy greens. Um, we also talk in our community about seed cycling as well. So that I can quickly touch on seed cycling. That is using different seeds throughout the menstrual cycle to just help build the minerals that may be depleted. So during the first half of the cycle, the menstrual and follicular phase, you're going to want to add in ground flaxseed as well as pumpkin seeds. So adding that in nutritionally. Then when we get into the follicular phase, this is where testosterone is on the rise. Green means go. We're ready. This is where you're going to be lifting heavier in the gym. So this is if you want to do PBs, do your PBs during the follicular phase. And that means that you need to support that with proper nutrition, making sure you are getting in your protein. You're always eating if you're listening, if you've been around for a while, you know that we are protein queens, but this is the week you really need to make sure that protein is dialed in to complement the work that you're doing at the gym. Ovulation, you just really want to make sure that everything's balanced. I mean, always you want to make sure things that are balanced, but protein, fiber, fat, super important. And then in the luteal phase, as women, we know that we have different cravings. I do not recommend any more than 12 hours of fasting during that luteal phase. Don't do that to yourself. It's just dumb. Like make sure that you're nourishing yourself appropriately and not taking fasts that are too long because most of us are going to undo it. And so this is also where we really want to prioritize the protein, healthy fats, space your meal timing, 3 bigger meals a day, maybe a snack as well. And don't stretch your fast too long if you are still cycling.
So I want to stop you here because I said with a full mouth of chips yesterday that my mouth hurts me today is that I think that when you're in a diet phase and you're trying to, let's say, lose weight, you think you're gonna hit the same number of macros every single day. But like I will tell you, as someone who couldn't stop eating Cheerios yesterday, I needed so much carbs in my body. My weight actually dropped this morning. Funny enough, I had Cheerios and chips and I just dropped weight, but like my body needed something different. And so I want to just say this is where cravings can feel completely out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the worst thing you can do, correct me if I'm wrong, is like not give in to them, right? You're like, I'm not going to have it. Cause like for me, for example, it was like I really wanted to have more carbs. My body needed it. And so I could have said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm in a diet phase right now. And then I'm going to swing the pendulum in the other direction and eat, 15 bags of chips, 10 things of cookies, pints of ice cream. I think this is so important. When I look at my cycle, what's left of it, I look at it like kind of like stop and go. Right. So, like, right now, this is like for me, it's go. I need to listen and give in a little bit because if my capacity is so much limited versus like my follicular phase, I am like, I'm in go mode. Like, this is like, I can handle being more restrictive. I can handle saying no to myself. Cravings kind of come down a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
100%. And that's where women throw in the towel. That's where we get frustrated, especially with weight loss. We're like, how come I could say no to the chips 2 weeks ago and I can't this week? It's because you're fucking hormonal. So do not cut carbs during the luteal phase. That's the dumbest thing ever. But do try to front load with nature's carbohydrates. So the sweet potatoes with the skins on, the squashes, the carrots, the fruit.
air fry them with salt, guys, way better than chips. But if you're a
Right.
chip lover like me, sometimes you just might need those
You
chips.
might need the chips. You might need the chips. But start with nature's carbs first.
Yep.
But this is not the week to cut carbohydrates. You might have a little more success and ability to cut carbs if that's your approach during the follicular phase, but don't do that during the luteal phase. And that's where having cravings like chocolate are real as well because it's full of magnesium and manganese, and we need that to support our bodies as well.
Ooh,
And so
magnesium. You touched on that. This is where we can double up on magnesium too, right?
absolutely, right? And so our body is always giving us signs and signals. So if you're craving chips, it's like, what are my electrolytes like? Where are my minerals at? If you're craving the pastas, the cookies, have I been eating enough fiber? Where's my fiber at, right? So, um,
And
and
also just pause there. We have to also identify, this is where it becomes doing hard shit, is like, what is a craving and what is a habit? So if you're like, I always want chips, I always want cookies, like I don't. I could fucking give a shit about chips. And you guys know I love chips and fries. For 3.5 weeks of my cycle, I can like walk by the chips and not care. But then there's those 3, 4 days where I'm like, it's happening now. And I
yeah,
think that like a lot of us use that as an excuse to take it in. Oh, well, I have my period. And then it's like, oh well, fuck it, I've already done it, I might as well just keep going, right? And so I think there's this really deep connection of really getting to know yourself and your cycle. So okay, we've got a few minutes left and I want to touch on this. Let's say we are postmenopausal now and we're not
mhm,
cycling. What
yeah.
do we do?
Yeah. So this is where we're going to get a little witchy. And this is where I'd like you to start being aware and anchor your energy around the moon. Listen, if you had a period and you may be postmenopausal or maybe you had a hysterectomy or maybe you've there's a whole chemically like there are reasons why women no longer have a cycle. For those women, follow the moon because you likely had a period for 30, 40 years of your life. And then boom, it's gone. And suddenly we don't have those rhythms anymore. That's bullshit. So start to begin to anchor your just awareness around the full moon, which is where the moon is bright in the sky. We're all familiar with that. And the 2 weeks later is a new moon. And that's where it's dark. And then in between the new moon and the full moon, so we've got the new moon, which is aligned with our menstrual cycle and the winter. So that is the period, that is the week where literally it's dark because the moon is gone. It's not it's there, but it's not reflecting the sun's light. And so that is like the winter time. That is your week to just scale back a little bit. Energetically, the way that you're showing up, the way that you're eating, the way that you're nourishing your body, still follow those rhythms and patterns that you did when you were cycling. Then we've got the waxing moon week, and this is where the moon, the brightness is starting to get lighter and brighter. So this is like the follicular phase in spring. So this is your week, ladies. Green means go, double down, start to do those hard things. Then we've got that full moon week. It's bright in the sky, just like the summertime. Full moon is like one day, and kind of we have that bright night sky for a couple of days around that full moon. So think of that too as that ovulatory summer kind of energy as well. And then the moon starts to shrink and get smaller, and that is called the waning moon. And so that waning moon is like the luteal phase or like autumn. So we can still very much lean into those rhythms. And I think as women, they're there, right? Like we said from the top, there are 4 seasons, Mother Nature, the moon is what pulls tides and bodies of water. So use that as like a little energetic anchor because not every day has to be the same. When you are hormonal, when you are in your fertility years, we are not the same person one day to the next. So why would that suddenly change postmenopausally?
I love that. I also did not know that the waxing moon is from new moon to full moon. Is that correct? And then
Yes.
waning is from full moon to new moon. Okay.
Yes.
So I will
Correct.
say, like, for me, when there is a new moon, I am fucking miserable, Kristine. It
Mm.
is really hard for me
It's
energetically.
dark.
Yeah. And I always, how do I know it's hard for me? Because I always Google it. I always Google, like, what should I feel? Because I think that for me, that is obviously my menses, my period, my winter, right? And I just feel Very energetically different than I do
Mhm.
with that full moon. With the full moon, I feel very spiritual. I feel high energy. I feel sexual, sexy, like I could use my power, my inner power. But that new moon, it is harsh. I find it harsh. So I didn't actually put that together. So that makes a lot of sense, especially if I'm someone who finds winter really challenging. Like I know a lot of our ladies do
A
too.
lot of people do. And here's the thing, the beautiful thing about perimenopause. Perimenopause, like our cycle is typically not as regular. Like you said, you're like, I hope I get a period in the next couple of days. For me, I was like day 21, I was like, seriously, I just had a period 3 weeks ago. So at this stage, what I recommend women do where things are a little more erratic is first and foremost, always, like you said, listen to your body. You wake up in the morning, how do you feel? If you slept like shit, honor that. If you have a lot of stress going on, if you did a hard workout and your body's a little bit sore, if you're a little bit under the weather, if something sad has happened, like always tune in and check in with yourself. How do you feel energetically? There's other mornings you feel great. And so always, always, no matter where you are in your cycle, no matter where the moon is, no matter what season we're on, trust yourself. So often I think we're at this stage of life where we've outsourced a lot of our power to doctors, to practitioners, to Google,
Mm,
to
yeah.
everything. We need to start owning that power back. So even though we're talking about the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle, we're talking about the moon, we're talking about the seasons, tune into your body first, always.
So one
And
question I love, and I'm gonna give my therapist full credit for this one, but the questions that I ask myself is, what am I feeling, and what do I need?
I love
What am I
that.
feeling? What do I need?
I like that.
Isn't that powerful? I am
That's really
feeling like low. I am feeling unheard. I'm feeling irritable. What do I need? I think I need to be alone. I think I need to shut my notifications off. I think I need to go for a walk outside. I think I need to go to bed early. Like, what is that that you feel you need? So, what am
yeah.
I feeling? What do I need?
Oh, that's good. You need a whole podcast just on that.
Yeah, I should.
Yeah, we need one for that.
No, yeah.
That is a good one. So yeah, tune into how you're feeling always. And then if you are in perimenopause and still have a cycle, somewhat predictable, start following that menstrual cycle. But there may be, I have, and you know this, I get 21-day cycles. I also have 75-day cycles. So like beyond like 35, 40 days, I'm like, WTF, I don't know what's happening here.
Yeah, we
That's
call
when
that, what do you call that? You call that luteal purgatory?
I call that perimenopause purgatory. I'm in perimenopause purgatory because I don't know what's happening. Take that pregnancy test. Make sure you're
Yeah.
not pregnant. But it's
God.
perimenopause purgatory. So that's where, by that point, beyond 30 days, I start leaning into the moon. So I just check with myself, okay, I don't know where my feminine cycle is. So where is the moon at? And then I will start following and giving myself those cues with the moon. So full moon, okay, Kristine, time to like giddy up. Or new moon, I'll be like, okay, haven't had a period in a long time. This is going to be my new moon menstrual week.
So like tack onto the moon there. So
Yeah.
what do you say when, like, let's use me as a prime example. Like I'm waiting for a period, meaning like my cycle's irregular. Obviously, I'm in perimenopause, and so where are we right now? We're heading towards a new moon. So what is that, waxing?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna probably get a period just as the moon is starting to get more full. So I'm kind of like out of alignment with the lunar cycle here. So
Well, or it's super witchy because you would say that's called like a red moon bleeder. Yeah, it's really cool when it doesn't always line up this way, but it is really cool if, as a cycling woman, you get your period on the new moon, you ovulate on the full moon. That feels really cool. But I I've done a little bit of research on this back in the day when they had tents and
yeah,
tribal
red tent,
tribes,
baby.
right? The the medicine woman, she would have her period on the full moon. So she would be an opposite bleeder than the rest of her community. So she was a caregiver. So if you find your, and again, it doesn't mean anybody's better or worse than,
No,
but it
but
is
it's
kind of
just about
cool.
nurturing, right? And as someone who just had her human design done and told
Yeah.
that I am a nurturer through and through,
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck, that does make
Yeah, so
sense.
when you get a period around the full moon, it's pretty cool as well. But just know, and there are women who their sleep is off during the full moon because it's too light and bright in the sky. And this is going a little bit off, but we are more bacteria than we are human. And sometimes the critters inside of our bodies and our gut microbiome, sometimes those guys like to have a party because they're nocturnal. And so for some women, it can disrupt sleep, A, because it's lighter and brighter outside, so it's just not as dark. B, those critters that are in our body, they start to have that party because I don't know how they know that it's a full moon,
I
but
have heard of this because, like,
yeah,
for parasite cleanses, they
yeah,
say to make it with the
the
full
full moon.
moon.
Yeah,
Oh my
that's
god,
why.
we're getting witchy and squirmy.
Yeah, I know, all at the same time. Yeah. But all that to say is that, and again, if your period lines up or not with the moon, don't worry about it. It's just cool when it does.
My period
Um,
used to always line up with the moon, but I think I'm going to be a red bleeder out there. Okay, so as for wrapping up,
yeah,
what advice? You know what, we're going to take turns. You're going to go first.
excuse me.
Bless you. What advice would you give to someone, bless you, who is like brand new to this, just heard about this, and is like, "Fuck, where do you think they should start?"
Yeah. First of all, this is not your fault that you've never known about this. And if you're a little pissed off because, whoop, I'm going to sneeze again. Excuse me,
Bless
sorry.
you. No, you did it 3 times. That means that, like, that's a pretty witchy thing. Because 'cause
I don't usually have three sneezes. I
I'll
usually
take
only
my
have
3.
two.
No, I'll just take my 3. Yeah.
Um, if this is the first time you're hearing this, it's okay to be a little pissed off. It's okay to be like, fuck, I've had this period, this menstrual superpower for 3 decades, and I never knew that she was my superpower. Be a little bit angry, be a little bit pissed off, and now embrace this. Use this information. Knowledge is power, and use it as your superpower. And even if you're postmenopausal and you're like, shit, I wish I knew this in my younger years, then start sharing it with your daughters, with your coworkers, with your family members, and start to lean into just that moon energy as well, and grounding yourself with the cyclical nature of Mother Nature.
I love that. I'll tell you 2 things. Number 1, when I was 13 and I kissed a boy, I legit thought I was pregnant. I think we can all laugh about that, as my kids are
Yeah.
probably listening to this podcast, and they're like, "My mom's such an idiot." Um, but I was very much on the mindset, and I do teach my daughter that she's so listen, 16-year-old girl is most fertile, right? So, like, I'm like, "You're gonna have sex, you're gonna get pregnant, just so you know." So don't do it. But I think the other big thing, like you say, is to teach your daughters. I will also go throw it in there, teach your partner, and not just like your husbands, your boyfriend, like your friends, because they might not know this either. And so
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how long ago it was. Okay, so I'm almost 46. So it must have been, I mean, I don't think I really learned about this to my 40s, but I saw something that had a woman, and above it, it had like the day of her cycle. So it was like day 1 to 3. And then it had her mood of what it was. And when I saw that, Kristine, I was like, holy fucking shit, this is it. And I just sent it to Albert. And I was like, I want you to understand what it feels like to be a woman as a cycling woman. And so I think it's really important for women. I know we talk about this all the time at FFWE, is like we have to
Mm-hmm.
advocate with our clients, for our clients, and we say, like, you need to like loop your partner into what's happening. So in perimenopause, and you're probably experiencing this, if you're in perimenopause, you're just feeling like you're out of fucking control. You might feel like you're so stupid, you can't remember anything, you're looking for your keys when they're in your hand, and your partner is looking at you like, who the fuck is this? You need to discuss this with your partner and say, there are things that are shifting in my hormones, and this is what's happening, right? And we don't say that when we're having a nervous breakdown, like I did this morning at Albert with our furnace. But I think it's super important that you loop them in so they understand. So, for example, Albert really does understand this. And so, as a perfect example, this morning we're having some furnace issues, and Albert texts me and he's like, this was around 8. And he's like, hey, guys, coming around 9 to 10. I told him you're working, but no problem. You'll let him in and whatever. And I flipped the fuck out at him. I was like, no, it's Thursdays are my podcast recording days. I can't stop. I don't want the noise. I can't do this. No one ever understands me. And it blew up and blew up and blew up and blew up and blew up. And I can hear myself talking like I'm crazy. And he says, totally fine, babe. I'll reschedule it for Friday. Totally fine. And I'm like, right? Like because he knows that I'm waiting for a period. And so then I settled down and realized, holy fucking hell, I am so reactive today. What do I feel? What do I need? I
Yeah.
need a deep breath. I need to go for a walk. I need to put on calming music. This is not time for me to be listening to podcasts, reading books. I need to just settle my nervous system down. I go back to him and I'm like, I am so sorry. Like that was so inappropriate. And he's like, I get it. Right. Versus me not explaining it. And it's not an excuse, it's an explanation saying, listen, this is what I'm experiencing because these feelings are real and they just get heightened in perimenopause and menopause. It's like, with a cycle, it is a mini menopause. At the end of every cycle, when that progesterone falls, that is menopause. It's a mini menopause every cycle. And so you can
Mhm.
imagine it when it's actually happening, it's like on crack. And I think that is just so important is like we never want women holding it in. Women need women. Absolutely. And we need to not hide our symptoms. I mean, this is why perimenopause especially, but menopause wasn't even looked into until the 1990s because women weren't speaking up because we were put into tents and just been like, hey, you did your thing, don't talk about it, don't whatever.
Well, because women didn't know. That's the thing. Like, you can't advocate for yourself when you don't understand,
Yeah.
when you don't know. Ignorance is bliss, but sometimes ignorance is just ignorance. Like, you can't explain this to Albert. The reason Albert understands this is because you understand it. You've described it to him. My daughter, who is 17, there's all the apps now. She's got a period app. She's got her boyfriend on her
Following
period
it.
app. Yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
the period app actually says, "Are you a friend?" Because you can make it's like I don't know any other kind of app. You can make friends with people on the app, and there's even the
What app
app.
is this, if you
It's
don't mind
called
sharing?
Stardust.
Okay, because I
Stardust app and
Stardust.
Stardust, and so she her boyfriend downloaded the app as a partner,
I love that.
and so he has said to her, "I know when you're going to get your period because you just change."
Yeah, I love that. I actually that's the other recommendation I would say is so many women don't track their cycles. You should be
Yes,
tracking your cycle 100%. And
absolutely.
I use Clue. I think it's called
Hmm.
Clue.
Yep.
That's a great app. And what I like about that too is you can also track your symptoms. So,
Yep.
like when you're ovulating, you can track that before your
Hmm.
period. Sometimes my app will kind of say to me, "Hey, how are you feeling?"
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
I was like, "Why are you asking me this?" And then I realized, "Oh, I'm in my late luteal phase.
Yeah.
Everything's coming into
Yeah.
place."
And you asked, like, what are some tangible takeaways? Absolutely. Track your cycle. If
Yeah.
you've got daughters, get her to track her cycle right away. And it's not, I mean, I first started tracking my cycle 20 years ago when I wanted to get pregnant, but I've been tracking my cycle for the last 10 plus years because I just want to know that awareness of what's going on in my body. So absolutely track your cycle. And if you are postmenopausal and don't have a cycle, still track your symptoms anyway, like even
Yeah.
just on a paper calendar in your notes.
I will say I track my cycle in so many different places. I also track it in my Google Calendar, and then the whole team sees
Yeah.
that my period is due.
We celebrate it we're like, we've got a whole announcement folder in
We
Slack.
do have an
Who's got their
announcement where we are
period?
like, we do sometimes talk about how fucked up our periods are. I love that. Okay, so I just want to before we wrap things up, just give us a little bit of information of what else do you do, where else can we find you, and yeah, tell us how we can find you.
Yeah, well, the best place to find me is by reaching out to Elise, following, I guess most people listening are following you, but I am on Instagram at coach.Kristine, and that's Kristine with a K, so you can follow me there. But if you want to hop on a call with Elise or somebody from our team to chat more about how I can support you, if you like my energy, my vibe, and you feel like this is an area that you could really use support on, then reach out to us. This is the way that we support women inside our 90-day for functional hormonal renewal program. And so I would love to walk alongside this with you. So reach out to us if this is something that you want some support with. We're happy to
Yeah.
help.
I love that. Thanks for the plug
Yeah.
there. I will say, I love you so much. Kristine is our very first coach at FFWE. And Kristine's actually the only coach, too, who is somewhat local. We don't live
Yeah.
that far apart. And Kristine and I have traveled together and we see each other socially as well. And you've become such a great friend and confidant and someone that understands my witchy and my crazy.
Yeah, girl.
it. All right, my girl. So great having you here today. If you guys have any more questions, I'd love to know, how did this episode resonate with you? Are you going to follow it? Go ahead and shoot me a message on social, Functionally Fit with Elise. And if you want to watch us, hopefully we're going to get this up on the YouTube channel as well, so you can see how jacked Kristine looks these days. And I'd love if you could also do me a solid and leave a review on this episode. We'll catch you on the next one.